The royal family has just seen a turning point as the quiet and often overlooked James, Earl of Wessex, steps into the spotlight with an announcement nobody expected. After years of being kept away from the public's eye, James has now accepted a brand new royal title, officially becoming a prince. This move doesn't just boost his royal status. It changes the future of the entire monarchy. But why now? And what does this big shift really mean? A young royal at the edge of his future. For centuries, the British royal family has fascinated the world with its crowns, palaces, and age-old traditions. Beyond the fancy ceremonies, it's the human drama, the fight between duty and what you personally want, that interests people most. Usually, attention focuses on the king, the heir, or Princess Catherine, whose every move gets analyzed. But now, an unexpected person has entered the spotlight. James, Earl of Wessex. Unlike his famous relatives, James has grown up away from intense media attention, making his quiet appearance in the public eye a refreshing change in the ongoing royal story. At 17, James seems on the surface to be a regular teenager. Like many guys his age, he spends his days focused on school, getting ready for college, and taking those first steps toward adulthood. To most people, his life looks calm and ordinary, not marked by intense attention that has followed his cousins, Princes William and Harry, since they were little kids. But beneath that calm surface lies an incredible truth. James' choices are far from ordinary, and the path ahead of him is unlike that of any other young man. James faces a decision that could change not only his own future, but also the shape of the monarchy itself. The question is simple but huge. Will he step forward as a working royal, dedicating his life to public service, duty, and the never-ending attention of the world's cameras? Or will he choose the quieter path, one of privacy, independence, and freedom, where he can live as close to a normal life as a grandson of the late Queen Elizabeth can possibly have? James, Earl of Wessex, faces a decision that goes beyond his personal future. With King Charles III pushing for a smaller monarchy, the royal family relies on a smaller group of royals to handle official duties. James' choice whether to step into public life or go the private route could shape the monarchy's strength and survival. If he accepts the role, he might ease pressure on senior royals and make the crown more relevant. If not, the burden gets heavier on others, showing cracks in Charles's plan. Amazingly, the monarchy's future might partly depend on this barely known teenager's decision. Will James answer the crown's call or quietly walk away? Let's dive into the details of the critical moment in which James finds himself as he deals with both heavy personal decisions and royal duties. James on the edge of adulthood and independence. James, Earl of Wessex, the youngest child of Prince Edward and Duchess Sophie, is quietly approaching a life-changing moment. At just 17 years old, and with his 18th birthday coming this December, James stands at the doorway of adulthood, getting ready to step out from the protected environment of his family home. His sister, Lady Louise Windsor, has already taken this step, currently studying in Scotland. And now it seems her younger brother might soon follow in her footsteps. James is finishing his A-levels at Bradfield College, and next year could see him packing his bags for college. A move that would mark another important milestone in his personal journey toward independence. For members of the royal family, moving away from home for college is more than just an academic choice. It is a tradition. Beyond textbooks and lectures, college life offers them something rare: the chance to live as young adults outside the constant watch of royal rules. It's an opportunity to taste normal life, build friendships, and explore who they are without the strict limits of palace life. In these new settings, young royals can discover independence, make mistakes, and grow experiences that help shape them as people as much as their education does. Yet, despite the growing curiosity about James' next steps, The details remain tightly hidden. Royal reporter Danielle Stacey noticed that this air of mystery is intentional. Unlike senior royals, James and his sister have grown up largely away from the spotlight thanks to the careful choices of their parents. The Duke and Duchess of Edinburgh, Edward and Sophie, have consistently protected their children from relentless media attention, making sure that they enjoy as normal of childhood as possible. Because of this, the public should not expect yearly announcements or big statements about James' educational plans. His future, at least for now, remains his own to decide. Still, if royal history is anything to go by, there are hints about what might lie ahead. Many young royals before James have taken gap years after finishing school. This kind of path allows them to expand their horizons, gain valuable life experience, and enjoy some freedom before their responsibilities of adulthood weigh in more heavily. If James chooses this route, it wouldn't be surprising if he spent time abroad, carefully staying out of limelight before beginning his studies. And when he does start college, tradition suggests he might choose a campus outside London, where he can keep both privacy and a memorial student life. Whatever path James takes, one thing is certain: the coming year will mark a pivotal moment in his life as he begins to create his own identity within and beyond the royal family. Why would the monarchy need James so badly right now? What explanation could justify the urgent need for including James in the royal circles? A crown under pressure. To really understand why James's decision carries huge weight, we must first step back and look at the current state of the royal family. When King Charles took the throne in 2022, he made no secret of his vision. He wanted a smaller, more efficient monarchy, one that was modern, less expensive, and more relatable to the people. And for things like that, sovereign risks, which so many companies and investors find difficult to deal with. The idea was to strip away excess, cut costs, and focus on a handful of royals who could represent duty with dignity. It sounded like a good plan, but their reality has proved far more complicated. The slimmed-down monarchy may have looked neat on paper, yet in practice, it has been stretched to its limits. Senior royals have either stepped away or been forced out. Scandals have shaken public trust, and health issues have taken away the institution's strongest pillars. Prince Andrew's fall from grace after damaging controversies left Prince Harry and Meghan's dramatic exit tore away another vital layer of support. Even the tireless Princess Anne, famous for her incredible work ethic, cannot possibly keep up with the endless stream of duties and demands. The cracks are beginning to show. Royal levies are piling up at a dizzying rate. Charities are begging for royal patrons to keep their causes in the spotlight. The public still expects the monarchy to be visible and active, but there are simply not enough people to share the load. What once seemed like a sleek modern monarchy now looks fragile and maybe even unsustainable. This is where Prince William steps into focus. As heir to the throne, William cannot ignore that challenges pressing down on his familial institution. Unlike his father, he seems to understand the urgency of bringing in fresh help. Without new blood, the risk of burnout or collapse becomes dangerously real. And so William's attention turns naturally toward the younger royals, who have so far lived quieter lives away from the constant public eye. Lady Louise Windsor and her younger brother James, Earl of Wessex. Their prince, Prince Edward and Sophie, have long been the monarchy's unsung heroes. They work hard, step enduring grizzes, have managed to avoid the scandals that have damaged so many others. Dependable, modest, and deeply loyal, they represent exactly the kind of stability the crown's so desperate talents. If their children chose to follow in their footsteps, they could breathe new life into the monarchy's worn-out image. But the options are already shrinking. Lady Louise has signaled her wish to chart her own independent path, stepping away from royal duties to live on her own terms. That leaves James. Still only a teenager, He suddenly finds himself at a crossroads that could shape not just his own future, but the fate of the monarch itself. The crown's need for him has never been greater. And the decision he makes may have consequences far beyond anything he imagined. Could Lady Louise's rejection have any impact on James's decision? Would it be easy for James to turn down the monarchy's rect? Let's dive into the details of the effect Louise's rejection might have on James. Lady Louise's rejection and the weight on James. Lady Louise Windsor, the older sister of James, has become one of the most interesting people in the royal family's quiet drama. She represents a striking contrast in the story of duty, choice, and identity. When she turned 18, she had the full right to call herself Her Royal Highness Princess Louise. With just that single decision, she could have stepped into the dazzling but demanding world of royalty. That title alone would have opened doors to influence, privilege, and a lifetime of public recognition. Yet, in a move that surprised many, Louise gently turned her back on the opportunity. Instead of embracing the crown, she chose to remain known simply as Lady Louise Windsor, free from the expectations of monarchy. Right now, she is studying English at prestigious University of St. Andrews in Scotland, the same school that once sparked therments between Prince William and Catherine Middleton. Okay, now this one I think should be fine. I did get a bit emotional when ising it in there because it's just like an unbelievable venue. But rather than being swept into royal tradition, Louise has voiced her interest in exploring careers far beyond the palace gates, fields such as the military, diplomacy, or even law. These are not just career options. They are statements of intent. They show her determination to live as her own person, not held back by royal titles. For Prince William, however, her refusal carried a sting of disappointment, with the monarchy under increasing pressure to modernize and stay relevant. He had hoped that Louise, with her intelligence, charm, and natural grace, might have stepped onto the royal front lines. Her presence schooled have lightened the load on senior royals and symbolized a new, relatable face of the crown. But Louise's decision firmly closed that door. And here is the ripple effect. By stepping back, Louise has accidentally shifted the weight of expectation onto her younger brother, James, without her to share the spotlight or responsibilities. James is no longer just the quiet second child of Edward and Sophie. Instead, he has suddenly become the monarchy's next great hope, the young royal who might carry the torch forward. If Louise had coasted differently, James might have been free to fade into the background, to enjoy a life largely protected from the constant attention of the public and the press. But her independence has forced circumstance into his lap. Now the decisions James makes are no longer just personal. They are deeply symbolic. Will accept the call to royal duty, or will he, like his sister, quietly retreat into a private life of choice and freedom? Let's dig briefly into the details of the two roads before James at the crossroads. As James nears his 18th birthday, he faces a life-changing decision that could shape both his future and the monarchy's path. He must choose between living privately or stepping into the royal spotlight by accepting Prince William's invitation to become a working royal. This role would throw him into constant public duties, ceremonies, charity work, and international visits, while giving up much of his personal freedom, though every move would be closely watched. James would also gain a powerful platform to support meaningful causes, bring fresh energy into the royal family, and help redefine the monarchy for a modern era. There is a powerful appeal in this path. He could become the face of a younger generation within the monarchy, showing the world's tradition and modern values don't have to stand apart. They can walk hand in hand. His involvement would also exert pressure on senior royals who are increasingly stretched thin by demands of duty. In this way, James will not only be serving his country, but also protecting an institution many feel is at a turning point. Yet the breeze of such a role would be heavy. He would trade the simplicity of anonymity for a lifetime of scrutiny. Every decision, every friendship, and even his private struggles could become headlines. The crown may not sit on his shed, but the weight of duty would never leave his shoulders. On the other hand, James could decline the offer. In doing so, he would follow the example of his sister, choosing a quieter, more private life away from the demands of the throne. He could go to college, chase professional dreams, explore passions, and live by his own schedule rather than one dictated by centuries of tradition. Freedom, privacy, and independence would be his to enjoy. But such freedom would come with its own consequence. His decision would send a message that the younger royals may no longer want to tie themselves to the throne. For the monarchy, this would be no small matter. The institution is already facing what some describe as a staffing crisis, with fewer working royals carrying an increasing burden of responsibility. If James walks away, it will deepen the challenge for Prince William as he looks to secure the future of the crown. The refusal could mark more than a personal choice. It could symbolize the gradual falling apart of a system, not by deliberate reform, but by the simple will of those born into it. James's decision, whether yes or no, is not just about him. It may echo far beyond his 18th birthday, shaping the monarchy's future in ways no one can yet predict. One of the reasons for this complexity was Prince Edward's decision. What did he do? How did it affect his children? Why did he take that decision? Was it worth it? Let's find out. A royal life without the burden of royal titles. When Prince Edward, the youngest son of Queen Elizabeth II, married Sophie Jones in June 1999. The couple made a decision that would set their family apart from traditional royal expectations. With the blessing of the Queen, they chose a different path for their future children. Instead of automatically receiving the grand titles of Prince or Princess, their kids will take on the more modest courtesans given to the children of an earl. It was a conscious step toward raising their children in an environment dominated by royal formality and more connected to the realities of everyday life. As a result of this arrangement, their son James entered the world not as a prince, but as Viscount Severn, a courtesy title linked to his father's earldom. For many years, he carried this title quietly away from Thynton's spotlight that often follows those with the royal title. Life remained relatively normal for James, at least by royal standards. But titles in the royal family are rarely static. Precisely yes and hi. Having those times together in the summer allows those relationships. I mean, we're a lot more fortunate. When Edward and Sophie were elevated to Duke and Duchess of Edinburgh in 2023, James' title shifted once more. He then became James, Earl of Wessex, reflecting his position as heir apparent to his father's earldom. However, one key thing remained. James will never inherit the prestigious Duke of Edinburgh title. That dukedom, a significant honor tied closely to Prince Philip's legacy, will eventually return to the crown when Edward dies, as agreed when the late Queen and Prince Philip initially structured the succession of titles. For James, this means his future will follow a quieter, more private path compared to some of his royal cousins. The reasoning behind this unusual decision has long fascinated royal watchers. According to the BBC, the choice was made deliberately to avoid some of the burdens of royal titles. In other words, Prince Edward and Sophie wanted to spare their children from the heavy weight of expectation, public scrutiny, and rigidity that often comes with the style of prince or princess. Sophie, now the Duchess of Edinburgh, gave a rare glimpse into their parenting philosophy during a 2020 interview with a sense of practicality and maternal clarity. She explained, "We try to bring them up with understanding that they are very likely to have to work for a living, which is why we made the decision not to use a royal titles. They have them and can decide to house them from 18. But it's highly unlikely. Her words painted a vivid picture of a modern royal household. One where the children are prepared not for a lifetime of palaces and privilege, but for the possibility of forging their own careers and identities by not being dressed as his or her Royal Highness from childhood. James and his sister, Lady Louise Windsor, have been able to enjoy a more balanced upbringing. They attend regular schools, hang out with friends outside royal circles, and experience a taste of life in the golden walls of monarchy. In many ways, this choice reflects a broader shift within the royal family, an attempt to adapt to the changing expectations of the public and the evolving role of monarchy in the 21st century. For James, Earl of Wessex, it marks the beginning of a life that balances noble heritage with grounded virility, a rare combination in the royal world. What would James' response be? How could it affect the monarchy? Let's dive into the uncertainties that cloud his decision as all signs. Point to his acceptance despite the weight of their responsibility and his young age. The future hangs in the balance. James, Earl of Wessex, may be only 16th in line to the British throne. But his upcoming decision carries a weight far greater than his position suggests. What appears to be a personal choice for a young man on the edge of adulthood is in reality a reflection of a far bigger question: what role should the monarchy play in today's world? In an age where democracy, personal freedom, and individuality are celebrated, the old expectations of lifelong service and sacrifice to the crown seem increasingly at odds with modern values. For centuries, the monarchy has thrived. On tradition, younger royals were expected to step into roles of service, standing as visible symbols of continuity and loyalty to the nation. But times have changed. Today, many argue that royal blood should not automatically meandering up personal dreams, ambitions, or independence. Instead, each prince and princess should have the freedom to decide whether they want to serve or to live quietly as private citizens. And no, James finds himself at the very center of this debate. The situation is complicated by the fact that the monarchy itself is divided in vision. King Charles III is deeply rooted in tradition, believing in a slimmed-down but still visibly active royal family. His son, Prince William, however, peers to lean towards a slightly different model, one that emphasizes fewer working royals, but places enormous responsibility on those who remain. For James, this creates a delicate crossroads. Should he walk the well-worn path of duty or follow the less predictable road of personal freedom? Interestingly, his older sister, Lady Louise Windsor, has already chosen Thalitor. She has stepped quietly into a private life away from the flashing cameras and constant scrutiny. That choice, though respected, has left James with even greater pressure. The monarchy, still recovering from years of controversy and transition, waits anxiously for his answer. Looking across Europe, we see monarchies in places like Denmark, Sweden, and even Spain shaping themselves. Younger royals in those countries have been allowed to fade into ordinary lives, pursuing careers, families, and passions without heavy chain of public expectation. Yet, Britain's monarchy is unlike any other. Its global influence and historical significance mean that every decision, even from a royal as far down the line as James, becomes international's. As James approaches his 18th birthday, speculation grows louder. Will step forward and take on the Duchess of, a working royal standing beside his parents and cousins as a representative of the crown? Or will he quietly step aside, following in his sister's footsteps and choosing independence over tradition? The truth is, whatever he decides will not only define his own future, but it could also set the tone for the monarchy in the coming decades. Will it remain an institution anchored in tradition? Or will it adapt to the spirit of freedom that defines our age? The world waits for James's choice: tradition or independence, duty or freedom. His answer may be personal, but its echo will be heard far beyond palace walls. So, What do you think convinced James to accept the offer despite its weight and his age?